I'm going to specifically talk about eco-density, and I'm going to talk about it as a public dialogue, because I think that's something that's been a bit missing from the discussion so far. But certainly, a big part of what I'm going to talk about is how to get the media engaged and the public engaged in what can often be awfully boring and dry planning and design discussions. Most of you who have seen the wonderful images about Vancouver have largely seen our downtown, which has been the area where 45,000 more people have moved since about 15 years ago. But our challenge is the rest of the footprint of the city. About 50% of the land area of the city of Vancouver, and that doesn't even count the region, the land area of the city of Vancouver is single-family houses. And as I referenced a few days ago, it's in a very urban pattern. It's a very strong rectilinear, well-connected grid pattern that is ready to accept density from a physical sense. But whether the city's ready to accept densification from a political sense has been the subject of the last year and a half of my life. As we shift from our focus of a livable city and being satisfied as being the most livable city in the world, according to The Economist magazine and others, we've been focusing more and more on sustainability front and center as a way of redefining what livability is going to mean in the future. I'll show you a few projects that we've been learning from over the course of the last few years. These are models, I said at a recent conference, I think every director of planning should have to show the average projects or the bad projects in their city, not the best projects in their city, because really your sustainability is going to be determined at least by your average project, not by your best. And all of us tend to show our best, as I'm sure you would agree. But I'm going to show you a few of our best and tell you how I think these models are going to change the status quo. Change the business as usual, because I insist, if a model doesn't change the status quo, it's useless. This is Southeast Falls Creek, also known as Olympic Village. It's got to be built, physically occupiable by 2010, the Winter Olympics, because we can't tell the Olympics that we need a few more months. It is long before we got the Olympics, it was intended to be a model. The most sustainable community in North America on a brownfield site was our goal. And I'll give you a few of the quick successes so far. District energy, the first significant approach in our city for district energy. It's actually sewer heat recovery. The entire neighborhood is going to be heated and cooled based on waste heat and waste cooling from the actual sewer pipes. All of the buildings in this entire project have to be a minimum of LEED Gold, and we've built in a considerable amount of regulation requirement around passive design, as well as a series of floor space exclusions, incentives, if you will, for everything from deep balconies and solar shading to address the issue of heating and cooling, natural ventilation, exterior courtyards and exterior walkways and hallways in order to assist with both solar heating and cooling. Different approaches to thermal massing. Vancouver's known for its glass buildings, and frankly, we want to move towards different, more sustainable materiality relative to heating and cooling. Urban agriculture incorporated into almost every project. 50% of all the roofs have to be covered by green roofs in this area. There is a mix of affordability. After density bonusing, it's about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But basically, 1/3 is market, 1/3 is supposed to be affordable, and largely that means rental in Vancouver, and 1/3 is actually social housing. And of the public buildings that are going to be in the project, we're going to have our first net zero social housing project, carbon net zero. We have our first LEED Platinum building in Vancouver, which is the community center. And as I said, all the other buildings have to be LEED Gold. This is how it's being built. A tremendous number of cranes on site right now. The public realm is opened and in, and it's getting rave reviews in terms of the quality of its urban design, all sustainable materials, reused materials, etc. So we really do want to send the message that this is a sustainable community by North American standards. Part of our bid for the 2010 Olympics was to be the Green Olympics. This is an exciting project that we've put the approvals in place for, and they're moving forward. It's a mall, it's a shopping mall that is significantly densifying in terms of residential housing, mixed use, a new transit stop along our new Canada line, which is a subway that's being built right now to connect the airport to the downtown, again in time for the Olympics. The most interesting thing about this mall is it is, by the way, all the regular LEED stuff, LEED buildings, green, sustainability, etc. The most interesting thing about this project in my mind is that this is the second most successful mall on a sales per square foot basis in Western Canada. Usually the projects that you hear about redoing malls are about the failed Greyfield to Goldfield type of malls where they have to rebrand it because it's a failure. This was a tremendous success. They had no economic incentive to need to do something fundamental here. They just saw an opportunity to make even more money. We saw an opportunity to show that you could do it in a way that keeps the highly successful financially mall going. That was one of their key priorities. Our priority was urbanism. So taking myself away from some of the projects, I want to talk about some of the high-level things. We certainly do recognize in Vancouver, as I've said, that Vancouverites understand the issue of climate change, and they do generally understand that there's a connection between our physical form as a city and our impact on the environment and on climate. So I don't have to educate people, generally speaking. But I think most cities do, and most planning departments and most sustainability discussions are not public enough. But we usually start with a fair amount of discussion about some of our specific goals and where we need to go. This is something we did a few years ago, our Climate Change Action Plan. It sets some initial goals for us. By 2012, taking our city operations carbon neutral. By 2030, have our entire building stock within the city carbon neutral. And by 2050, reducing our overall GHG emissions by 80% in keeping with Architecture 2030. This is where we start. We are, in fact, doing very well by North American standards. About 5 tons per year per person of GHGs is very good by comparison to most North American cities. But Vancouver does not benchmark ourselves against North American cities. We look at the best worldwide cities, and we recognize that cities like Copenhagen, Oslo, Barcelona have about half our impact. And that's where we are aiming ourselves. So the question becomes, how do we get there? Our particular building, or our carbon footprint looks like this. We have slightly higher percent of our carbon footprint in actual building stock, and that's because as a city we've managed to get our transportation GHGs down. We're in the top 3, we're the lowest GHG per capita in North America. We're in the top 3 in terms of the greatest reduction, percentage reduction in the past 10 years or so. So we're doing well, but we've still got big problems. This starts to show how density and urban pattern relate specifically to GHGs. We took a look at where our actual highest emitters are relative to the urban pattern. And as one might expect, our most sustainable folks are downtown, 1.5 tons per year, right in the downtown peninsula where there's 45,000 more people are. As you move out of the downtown, you move up to about 3, and then the rest of that city, that single-family pattern, notwithstanding its transit connections and arterials and such, is at the highest at around 6. So it averages out to about 5.